Assalamu alaikum. This is Shakila. I'm a Tajik Khorasani Persian speaker from Khorasan, and I will be reading a book called A Nobleman from Khorasan. Before I read the book, I would like to elaborate a little bit and talk about, give a brief description about the book, what the book is about. So the book is about a nobleman from Khorasan, or a legend. He was also a legend. Um, his name was Habibullah Kalakani. He was born, I believe, either in 1891, between 1891 to 1870, in the village of Kalakan, north of Kabul. He was an ethnic Tajik. His father was a water carrier during the Second Anglo Afghan War for Afghan soldiers in Kabul. Hence, why Pashtuns and people who disliked him called him Bache Sakau, which means son of a water carrier, as an insult to his father's background. In his memoir, Kalakani stated that his home village was miserable and that he had conceived a deep hatred of its poverty stricken exterior. At the age of 14, he left for Kabul on horseback with his friends Noor and Jamal. And later, he joined King Amanullah Khan's army and fought in the Third Anglo Afghan War and the Khost Rebellion of 1924. During that later war, he served as an officer with an Afghan army model battalion and served with distinction during the suppression of the insurgents. Nevertheless, he deserted the unit at some unspecific time, and after working in Peshawar, he moved to Parachinar, where he was arrested and sentenced to 11 months of imprisonment by the British. So this book is very interesting, and the reason it's called A Nobleman from Khorasan, or also he's a legend, and it's also by Khalilullah Khalili, and it's translations by M.F. Munzajir. The reason it's called A Nobleman from Khorasan, because Khorasan is basically means land of the rising sun. Khorasan simply means a place where the sun rises. Khorasan does not belong to any ethnicity. It belongs to all people of all backgrounds, of all ethnicities living in the Khorasan region. So it's a very deep discourse, and it's historical discourse. We do not have much time to elaborate on this. Khorasan is the land of enlightenment, advancement, and innovation. The most prominent scholars from the 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th centuries were from Khorasan. Some of them included Ibn Sina, Maulana, Jalaluddin Balkhi, Abu Hanafi, Ferdowsi, Rabia Balkhi, and many more. So we have a lot of scholars and mathematicians and artists from that time. Therefore, Khorasan basically was a foundation for knowledge and for enlightenment. The name, unfortunately, has been changed in the 19th century by colonial power Great Britain in order to protect Amir Abdur Rahman Khan, the Durrani dynasty, and they gave a privilege for that ethnicity, Afghan or Afghan Pashtun ethnic group, who lived in the southern regions of Khorasan, or what was changed to Afghanistan. They call our home land of Afghans or Afghans or Pashtun. So they changed the name from Khorasan, which means sunrise, to Afghanistan, which means land of Afghan. Historically, when we say Afghan, that is the equation of Pashtun, or the other way around as well. We have 34 ethnicities inside Khorasan, and Afghan or Pashtun is one name representing one tribe and one ethnicity, which has been imposed on other ethnicities. So it's a colonial name. It's not basically an indigenous name. And that is why the conflict started in the 19th century. The discrimination in the past and present has happened since the 19th century when the name was changed from Khorasan to Afghanistan. And that is why we are fighting for justice and national identity. For example, an American cannot be British, but you can be an English American, Arab American, Iranian American, Hispanic American, and Irish American because America is not an ethnicity name. Similarly, Iran and Pakistan are not ethnic names, but Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, and Afghanistan are unfortunately ethnic based names meaning mainland of Afghan, Uzbek, and Tajik. Unfortunately, that was a process of assimilation, not integration. So that is why we are fighting to bring social justice, freedom, equality, and again, we are fighting for national identity as Khorasanis from Khorasan. And also, this book was recommended by the United States of Democratic Federal of Khorasan government in exile. And I will start reading about Habibullah Kalakoni because also he was criticized and he was called son of water carrier, or in Persian we say Bache Sakao. So I'm going to read this book, and hopefully a lot of people who are interested in reading this book will get a better understanding. And also for those of you who are interested in this book called A Nobleman from Khorasan by Khaliullah Khalili, you can also buy this from Amazon or online. And this is a very interesting book, and we are going to start reading. So chapter 1 on page 1. Let's see. Actually, I'm going to read the back of the book. It says, a Robin Hood of Khorasan, seasoned with love, passion, and nobility. The enemy had crossed oceans and mountains. They had come from Great Britain. March of their army had ignited anger and vengeance in every home. Men, women, and children scowled at beardless, long, hairy, mustached soldiers in the city. Anger had boiled inside the bone and the blood of every citizen. They believed that soldiers holding guns and patrolling all over the city were like walking deaths. Their blood had frozen like zombies, and their souls were lifeless in their muscles. So page 1, chapter 1, it's called Kasaburj, the Palace of Princess. It was the 17th of Ramadan, the month Muslims fast for purity and nobility. The golden rays of the sun had climbed over the Chinari mountain. It was a season of harvesting, fruitful sallows and plane trees veiled under emerald leaves. Kandahari grapes had ripped, while other types of grapes were still green. Grief and mourning were felt everywhere in Kabul. Maybe the city expected a tragedy. Balahisar, a key for conquering Afghanistan, was seized by the malicious enemy. Only 2 gates into the Balahisar, snatched by long spearheads of vicious enemy, were opened for the commute. The first gate located at sunrise of Kabul, connecting Mastan Bridge to Shah Shahid Main Road. The second gate crossed a grandest tomb connecting Balahisar to a public cemetery. It was early morning and Kabul Bazaar was quiet like a dead. Maybe it was Ramadan, the month Muslims avoid eating and drinking from dawn till sunset. Yaqub Khan, a wasted Sikh king who inherited throne, lived in the north of Kabul city in a walled castle. Everyone hoped he was alone in this savagery, but his reckless, unconscious ministers and friends lived with him too in the castle. His friends and administrators only thought about their own greed. Tremors of the Afghanistan army marches were heard time to time from Sherpur barracks. The king had ordered his generals to use the army of spear holders, gunmen, and artillery only for the purpose of defending the sovereignty of his country against all enemies. They must avoid going into the wars by all means. Men, women, and children scowled at beardless, long, hairy, mustached soldiers in the city. Anger had boiled inside the bone blood of every citizen. They believed the soldiers holding guns and patrolling all over the city were like walking deaths. Their blood had frozen like zombies, and their souls were lifeless in their muscles. The sound of the enemy horses hooved it in every lane of Kabul. Many people in the city fought and died, and many shed tears and broken hearts. Soldiers in Sherpur barracks muffled. Maybe they feared death. The king was sick, and his friends and advisers shamelessly circled his shaky throne like hyenas. They did not show bravery and devotion to their country and king. They were traitors. Their greed had overcome their patriotism. Because they were promised wealth by the enemy, they were snakes in the sleeve. The palace of the princess had tall walls and 4 steel towers. In every tower, a beautiful mansion was built for embellishment. Gigantic black gates of the castle were made from pure steel. Oversized, colorful nails on the gate had added to its solemnity in the city. Yards of the castle were decorated with sallow trees, flowers, and colorful paths. Spring was the best season in the castle. The fruit trees grabbed every soul that put a step inside the castle, and the muddy cobble river crossed along the castle like a mad thunderstorm. Several days passed. The queen and female slaves of the king's courtyard had left Sherpur to visit the ill king in the castle. Male servants and gatekeepers guarded the palace against any unauthorized intrusion. The queen had asked Gulchehra to supervise the palace and oversees the female slaves. Gulchehra was also the instructor of the princess. The queen went to care for her husband. Gulchehra spent scorching hot days with thirst and hunger in Southwest Tower, where she could watch Balahisar from the tower. The northern tower was a cozy and comfy. She could stay in there, breathe fresh air, and watch Shirpur, the house of the king, but she preferred staying in the southwest tower. She wanted to watch Balahisar, the camp of the enemy. It was a tragic day for the nation. The country needed its king the most, but the illness had crippled the king. The enemy had crossed seas and mountains. They had come from Great Britain. Marches of their army had ignited anger and vengeance in every home. The gatekeepers and towers guard of the ill king were too weak to face an empire. The guards showed no hatred or anger against the enemy. Balahisar looked like a swollen heart from the colorful windows of the tower to Gulchehra. She felt pained like an amputated soldier who could no more defend the line against the enemy. Balahisar was the heart of Afghanistan, and walls along Lions Gate Mountains were like veins pulling the heart together. The main gate, located at the sunset of Balahisar, it connected snout of high mountains to the castle, and the Casa Burj was built in it. Women in the city called it Yak Lagu. Yak Lagu is a bowl like a plate with metal beak and a long handle. Some people called it Bijonju, the abbreviation for a British soldier who guarded this gate and was slaughtered by people during the uprising. It had many names, but everyone knew it by Casa Burj. The ancient wall attached to Lion's Gate Mountains was like a thirsty dragon plunging its head onto a plate. The wall had curves and twists. Another similarity of the walls to a dragon was the bones of innocent people used as stone and bricks during ancient eras. In the ancient era, which labor could not work anymore, they used them as bricks to build walls. Human skulls were still visible on the wall. On the south of Casa Burj, a cemetery was constructed for heroes. They called it the True Martyrs Cemetery. It was a sacred name. Many people today, many believe that today, the last day for the sun to shine on the glory of Balahisar, the wall of Mizrab Shah and tower of Qubt Haidar. Mizrab Shah and Qubt Haidar were heroes of Kabul, which the places were named after them. They had become legends for generations. The enemy aimed destroying everything. The lavish, luxurious palace of Mughals and Abdalis still kindled bright. A roaring stream touched the chest of Maston Bridge. Maybe the river wanted to overcome the bridge and conquer the city. The turquoise emerald palace of Humayun, the emperor of Mughal, on the south of Balahisar still shined brilliance during full moon nights. Golchehra lived her life single and alone, but she had earned a place for herself in the palace. Her pride and character did not allow her to sacrifice her position for the company of a man. The city was under siege. Golchehra spent the day in the tower, staring at Casa Burj and Balahisar. She was not in danger, but she was worried about people in the city. It was a sunny summer day, and scorching warmth of sun increased at every minute passed. Screams and shrieks were heard from the city. It was heroic voices of the brave men who crushed the dust and mist with their clamors. A soldier from Sherpur garrison left his camp and ran towards Balahisar. It was a terrifying event. Furious cavalries and infantry marched towards Balahisar to conquer camps of the enemy. What had happened that to the lazy soldiers who slept until midday now suddenly marched like crazy gladiators? The crowd carried messages of morality, unity, and liberty with them. The soldiers were emotional and made them unstoppable. It was an extraordinary moment that even stones, trees, and soil moved with the crowd. The enemy locked all gates to Balahisar and formed a line of soldiers with spears around the castle. Sky turned partially cloudy, but Golchehra still could see the exhibition from the tower. Women and girls climbed up on roofs of their house and felt the scorching sun on their back as clouds moved away. Everyone aimed for one goal, the goal of defeating foreign enemies. Choices were limited, death or freedom. In a matter of minutes, gunmen joined and reinforced the spearsmen to counter the crowd. The enemy knew if the crowd reached Casa Burj, they would conquer Balahisar and annihilate them. Another division of Sherpur soldiers arrived at Casa Burj from Kharabat Lane. Soldiers surrounded the enemy from two sides, Maston Bridge and outskirts of Casa Burj. The enemy started firing at soldiers from all over the walls of Casa Burj. Soldiers on the ground still approached the walls. They sang songs of freedom and independence. Fires of bullets from guns and spears from hands, smoke from runs, and deaths from muns darkened the day. Gunpowder and blood were mixed. Golchehra saw everything. Brave soldiers quickly outnumbered the enemy and sprinted towards Casa Burj. The battle was bloody and dangerous. Stones, spears, and bullets fell from every corner of the castle on brave soldiers, but they kept climbing up the walls. Many soldiers bled. Many died falling back on the ground. The songs for freedom and independence got even louder. The relentless and cruel enemy stood pitiless because they knew Kasaburj was the strategic stand and the key in conquering Balahisar. Soldiers were wounded and kept falling from over the walls to the ground. It was an overwhelming demonstration of how badly they wanted freedom. The enemy commander ordered his men to throw coins of silver and gold to distract the soldiers and create a diversion among them. The trick did not work. Nothing could stop them. Blood boiled in their veins, and they were prepared to accept the death. Bullets, spears, and stones were accompanied by gold and silver, but the battle was thriving. The victory was imminent, and nothing could change the fate. Golchehra saw people in white clothes with sharp swords joining soldiers. The battle was not over, and more people in black dresses joined the soldiers. Golchehra did not know who these people were. As the battle turned sacrificial, she learned people in white were men reinforcing soldiers, and those in black, girls and women of Kabul, prepared to die for freedom. The enemy was defeated, and soldiers broke their fast. They trusted in God and listened to his instructions. They knew time was important in every struggle. It is how nobles live. And tomorrow we will read chapter 2. It's called An Eagle. Thank you for listening, and we will see you.